Okay, so Lucy just introduced me. My name's Jenna Richardson. I'm the Employment and Training Specialist at the Army Families Federation. So very quickly, just to mention Forces Families Jobs to you. You will all have heard of it because you're on this seminar, which is FFJ Explores CV Writing with the RFEA. For those of you who have a bit of understanding of Forces Families Jobs, we are a jobs board and we offer a bridge between employers that are forces friendly and those people from the military community who are looking for employment. I say we are a jobs board, but we are so much more than just a jobs board. We also are able to offer training opportunities and various opportunities for career advice and support. Linking in with this webinar within the Forces Families Jobs site, we do have a CV building function. So, you know, once you've sat and had a listen to what the ladies from RFEA have to say, you can always have a look on FFJ and set up your own CV through the system. So just a very, very quick introduction to FFJ. But yeah, I would recommend that you have a look at forcesfamiliesjobs.co.uk and see if there's anything available on there that's of interest to you. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'll take over from now. Thanks guys for the introduction to Forces Family Jobs. So my name is Lee Johnston and I'm a family employment advisor for the RFEA, the Forces Employment Charity, and we predominantly help veterans and service leavers and now families back into employment. Now, I work as a team that has developed this CV workshop that I'm going to be delivering today, and there is 4 families employment advisors throughout the UK that can support you with your employment search. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work through the slides and I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to each one. If you've got any questions, like Caroline said, Joanne, my colleague who covers the South and South East, will be covering any questions that you might have in terms of a CV. If there's anything you want to ask at the end, again, you can, and then the email address is at the end as well, so we'll get to them when we come to the end. But yeah, let's take on to the first slide. So in a nutshell, this is what I would like to cover today, and this is our perspective of what a great CV looks like. Okay, now there isn't one size fits all. There's not, you know, what one, you know, CV suits one person won't necessarily meet the other, but this is us as an umbrella looking at it and going, right, this is what should really be covered within your CV. This is what we should be looking at. This is what we should be tailoring. This is what we should be covering in the key skills section. And all these points are key to building that CV for going forward for a job. So we'll look at the purpose. So why are we putting together a CV? What is the purpose? What kind of styles of CV can you have? Okay, so there again, like I say, there's 2 types that we potentially work with on a daily basis. The content and layout, which is really important. So again, at the RFEA Families Programme, we offer something at the very start, a generic CV review, and we look at the content and the layout and what the format is, and we get that correct before we start tailoring it to each job that you're going to apply for. Again, skills and quality. Some people do maybe get confused by, you know, what is a quality and what is a skill and what should really we should be emphasising more of. Where should the skills go into and where should the qualities lie as well? Because they're equally as important as each other. It's just about making sure that we use them correctly. Again, profile or personal statement. Again, most CVs, in fact, all CVs should have a personal statement. And again, it's one of the first 2 things that an employer will read. Again, CAR statements. So this is your challenge, your action, and your result. They sometimes can be called STAR statements, but we use CAR statements in a CV because they don't have to be as long as a sort of a STAR statement. Tailoring your CV, again, that's one of the most important things that we should be doing. Again, when you're applying for jobs, making sure that we're looking at the job spec and looking at the personal specification and making sure we're matching our CV to that. And then the last one, cover letter, because I've been so guilty myself before this job of sending out CVs without a cover letter. So my bad, it's something that I want to kind of make sure that everybody's doing. Because again, I'll highlight it when we get to that slide. So what we'll do is we'll look at the purpose. So what do you think the purpose of your CV is? So again, I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes just to think about it. So what is the purpose of a CV? And I think sometimes, people think, oh yeah, just, I need to have a CV because that's just something I need to do to get a job. But actually, there's just a little statement behind that, and you just have a think about what the purpose of the CV is, and see if you can write any answers in the chat box of what you think and what your definition of a CV is. It's quite a question, isn't it? Because when you think about it, you think, well, it's just to get a job, or it's just to highlight, what I've done in the past. But actually, when we look at it, the purpose is the CV is there to convince an employer of your suitability to offer an interview. So not necessarily every CV will guarantee you a job, but what it will do is it can guarantee you an interview. So again, it's about matching your suitability to the job that you're applying for to be able to almost convince that employer that you're right for that role. Again, moving on, then getting to the interview stage. So that's the purpose of a CV. The styles of CV. Now, again, I mentioned this at the start. We use two types of CV, and we come across both on a daily basis. And there is no right or wrong version of a CV. Again, people have one of each. Some people have 10 versions of a CV. Some people have, umpteen ones for different sectors. But the two commonly styled CVs we see are reverse chronological. Now, your reverse chronological are the ones that are start with the personal statement, your key skills, and then what we do is we look at the employment history and the work history, and we really emphasise on that. Again, it's to highlight, the experience and skills that you've got. And again, this is done in reverse chronological order. So what we look at is your most current job first, and then we work our way back. Again, what we would do is we would say anything post 10 years and it's not relevant to the role, we wouldn't add it in, because again, we've got to be mindful that a CV should be between 2 pages and at a push 3 if it's relevant to the role. But ideally, we'd like to keep a CV to 2 pages. So again, it's just highlighting the skills and the experience you've got. And again, it's easier for someone to read. So when they're reading down the personal statement and the key skills, and then they get to that work experience, they know exactly what you've done from start to finish in each role. And again, it just highlights the fit for the role. The next one is a functional skills based CV. Now, these are not as common as the reverse chronological, but still have the same impact. Okay, so what a skills based CV would do is they group together and they highlight the skills that you have got. Okay, so what we look at is we look to group your skills within a subject heading so that the emphasis isn't on your work experience or your sort of employment history. It's more on the skills that you attain and what you can do for that role. And again, it's that transferability of your expertise over into that role. And again, it works in the same way that you would still highlight your key skills and things like that, but your work experience wouldn't be so heavily populated. Again, you could just pop in there a little sort of under your sort of work history. Again, just a little overview of what you've done, but you don't have to go into massive detail like you would with a reverse chronological, where you would go into sort of your roles and responsibilities and what you did in that role, and using your car statements to highlight your achievements. Right, so this, again, a lot of people think, God, when should I use each CV? Now, both CVs are suitable for any role, but these are the points that we bring up for the reverse chronological. So proactive and reactive job marketing opportunities. Again, proactive and reactive. The difference between both of them is proactive means that you are actively seeking jobs, as in you are on constantly, not waiting for opportunities to come, but looking in terms of really embedded in different places. Reactive means that when you get a job opportunity or something pops up on social media, or you go into a job site and you see it, that's being reactive to the job market opportunities. You can use your reverse chronological in it in either one of them. Again, when you're targeting a similar role or industry, so again, if you're going from retail to retail, if you're going from admin to admin, a reverse chronological is a really good way for them to highlight and show what your work experience has been. And again, it's career progression and spotlight promotion. So again, in your work experience, you will have a a range of opportunities that you've worked your way up from, or you might have started as an admin assistant and ended up as a an office manager, etc. And it just shows that career path. Functional skills is slightly different, but the same, proactive and reactive. So again, you can use that for any job that you apply for. But what it does is it highlights and transfers the skills and competencies, and especially if you're looking at a career change. So for instance, if you were going into, I don't know, going from retail to admin, or you were going from sort of an NHS role to something completely different, again, what it's doing is it's highlighting the skills that you've got, how you can transfer them into a different sector, but again, bringing what experience you've got out. So say, for instance, you could have your personal statement, and then underneath you'd have your skills section. And what it would be is it'd be like your communication section, and you would describe in car statements what your communication skills were, and from each job what you've brought from that. You could have administration, you could have a tab from management and leadership, you could have a tab. So all this, it doesn't matter where you've gained this experience from any role, it goes into that one skill section. Okay, so it highlights what skills you've actually got. And what it also does is, again, like what I just said, it connects the different roles that you've had, and not looking at them specifically in each role, but actually what you've achieved within that skill. So again, if you've used similar skills for a long period of time. So if you're looking to career change, or you've got gaps within your CV, we could look at a skills-based CV for you, and actually then start delving into what skills that you actually have. And this is why we looked at that it's important that CV is a great tool to have, but it's one part of your employability journey. So having an employment advisor like myself or Joanne, or anyone that can help you with things like that, this gives you, we can help you set out and see what skills you actually have. What have a think and think, actually, I've not thought about that. No, I didn't think I could do that. But actually, talking to you and having that experience and that example, now I can see that that is a skill that I would have. And again, sometimes just having it there to manage out with someone makes it easier reading for you to pop into each section for your skills. So yeah, please do just ask if we can help with anything like that. But again, if you've got a gap in your CV and you don't really want to highlight that within your work experience with the reverse chronological, let's look at a skills base. Let's see what you've got. Let's see what skills you have. Let's see what way we can slot everything in. When we go on to content and layout. Okay, so content and layout. Again, this is what should and shouldn't be within your CV, but how it should be laid out as such. So we've got, the question is, what do you think should be included in your CV? So again, it's having that little think about, actually, what should I put on my CV? So what things can I leave out? What things are important within my CV? And what things do they really not need to know about me? In terms of, whether that be, personal information and things like that. So have a little think. What do you think should be included in your CV? Now, there's a list coming out in a minute or so, but just have a little think what you think should be included in your CV, and maybe write them in the chat box. Maybe write them in there and see if there's anything that we can pick out that we go, actually, that's a good one. So just have a little think. And it's tough because you want to get as much information on your CV as possible, because you think, well, actually, the more information the better, because then they can make an informed decision that I'm really good for that job and I'm really perfect for it. But actually, sometimes less is more, and highlighting what you've got in terms of skills and how you would fit best well within that team is better than having everything on your CV. So I'll just move on. So content and layout. So we've got a few headings here that we go through. And this is things that we've come across, not with just the programme, but in terms of generalised CVs, what people see on their CVs. Now, we can go through each one and see why they should or shouldn't be there. Have a little look over them and see if it matches any of the ones that you thought that might be on there or should be on there, but aren't. So, again, I've been very guilty of popping CV on the top of my CV and things like that, and adding in references and all that sort of stuff. But again, you've got to then think back and think, is it relevant? Is this relevant to the role that I'm applying for? So we'll go through the first one. So CV, you don't actually have to have the name CV on there. It's self-explanatory when you first look at that document. As long as you've got your personal details at the top And again, we'll go through what contact details we should have on there. You shouldn't have to have CV on there, okay, because it's a self-explanatory document. Gender, again, we don't have to have gender on there. We don't want to open ourselves up to any sort of discrimination. And again, there's no relevance for it. It's personal data that they don't really need to know. Just out of just from a personal perspective, because my name is Lee and it's spelt the male way, I do get consistently thought that I am a male, and then I'm Scottish and admin, and it's just, but yeah, a lot of people think I am a male because when they read it, they say Lee Johnston, oh yeah, he must be male. And then they get a real shock when I walk through the interview door and I'm female. So yeah, there is absolutely no need to pop your gender on there. Ethnicity as well, again, it's a personal bit of information that doesn't need to be on there. Again, it doesn't make no reflection on whether you're suitable for that role or not, so it doesn't need to be on there. Key skills, a big massive green tick. And we would say absolutely there should be a key skills section in every CV, and it should be stated just underneath your personal statement. And again, we'll go through the layout when we get to the next slide. But key skills is a massive one, okay? Because this is really what's going to highlight how you can best fit and your suitability for that role. So what an employer wants to do is they want to read through that and see that you are actually tick, tick, tick. You tick 8 out of 10 of the key skills that they require, right, into the yes pile. It takes an employer roughly 7 seconds for them to make a decision based on your cover letter and your CV, because you can imagine the sheer volume of people they get applying for that job. When they're looking through that, they are literally scanning cover letter to your introduction to your CV, and then your personal statement, key skills. Once that captures their attention, then they read on and think, right, actually, he or she's got exactly what we need. We're going to read down further. Disabilities, again, we don't need to, that makes no difference to your suitability and your requirement for that role. So you do not need to have that on there. Obviously, we have to have your name on there. That's self-explanatory because they obviously need to be able to know how to address you. Again, it's always good just to have your name at the top, clear and concise. Marital status, it's not going to matter whether you're married or single, whether you can do that role or not. Again, it makes no difference to that employer at all, so it does not need to be on there. Career history absolutely needs to be on there. Again, career history is it's a proof of what you've achieved throughout your employment history and what you've done in that past. So again, it needs to be clear. It needs to explain exactly what your skills have been and what your key achievements are. And again, look into adding the CAR statements for clear, concise, they even needs to be 1 sentence of what you've achieved, and you're looking at the challenge, the action and result. And again, it's the result part that they're most focused on, about what did you do and what did that then achieve. References, I mentioned that back at the start. I used to put my references on my CV, ridiculous. And I didn't need to put them on there because there's no requirement, because they would only really ask for references if you're successful at interview for the job. Again, it's just an additional thing that just doesn't need to be there. You can, if you really wanted to, in references, you could put in saying references on request, but again, there's no requirement for it. So date of birth, again, we don't need to pop your date of birth on there. Again, we don't want to open up ourselves to age discrimination. We like to let them guess a little bit. And let your skills do the talking, let your experiences do the talking. Nationality, again, a bit of personal information that doesn't need to be on there. But your education and qualifications do. Okay, so they come under your work history. Okay, so with education and qualifications, we look to see that you have got all qualifications and education listed on there that are relevant to the role. So we wouldn't necessarily pop everything on there if you've got quite a lot of qualifications, but only pop on there what is relevant to the role. And again, pop them on under headings like GCSEs level data C 5. You do not need to list every education and qualification you've got. And again, you don't need to put any dates on these either. Unless the qualification expires, then you don't need to list when you did them, where you went, things like that. The qualification is enough. Again, once we start to bog down our education and qualification, then we start to the pages start to rack up on your CV. So again, just have it in the quick, clear and concise GCSEs level 5 to C, including English and maths 5, and then they know exactly how many you've got. Contact details, of course, that needs to be on there. They have to obviously be able to get in contact with you for your potential interview. So again, when we talk about contact details, you don't have to put the number of your house and what street you live in and town and county and your work mobile and your house mobile and your every number under the sun. Literally, all you need to list is the town and the county, and we look for an email address and a phone number, and that's all we would recommend you pop on there. They don't need to know where you live in terms of, obviously for you, it's your protection as well, because you don't need to pop all your details on there, but as long as they know you live in, for instance, Plymouth and Devon, email address, contact number that they can contact, that's sufficient enough. So we like to put personal interest box on our CVs. Again, I think it's a really nice touch at the end. It then gives an employer an indication as to how you would fit into a team. So say, for instance, you enjoy baking and you're this really bubbly person that's into yoga and things like that. This really does provide a personal touch when you're talking about yourself and what you do in terms of out with work-wise. This is what the types of things that you like to do. And employers do like to see it. Again, like I say, it just sort of solidifies how you would fit in well with the team. Profile, that's what we talk about when we're talking about your personal statement. Okay, that needs to be there. It will be one of the first things that they read. So whether you send in a cover letter or it requests one, the profile and the personal statement will be the next thing that they read. And that needs to absolutely be clear in exactly who you are, what you've achieved, and what you're looking for in terms of a role, like what can you offer. And we'll go into more detail about that. But again, it's up there with key skills. Profile key skills needs to be on point. And additional information. Additional information is a great little box that we pop under our qualifications in education. Again, in additional information, it might be the case that you go for a job and they say that you have to have a full driver's license. So you would pop in that additional information that you have a full driver's license, because again, it's another one of the job description personal specifications you're ticking. Whether you've got DBS clearance, if you're going to work in a nursery or you're going to be a childminder or things like that, full DBS clearance would be really useful under there. And any other additional information you think deems relevant to the role. So taking it back, what we'll do is we've discussed what should be on the CV, but actually when we're thinking in terms of how do we lay that out, so how should we, when we're looking at a CV, how should it then be each section integrated into one another so that it flows? So when we're looking at reverse chronological, what we're looking at is to have at the top is your name. So you're going to ultimately have your name at the top. That's where your personal details come in. Okay. We then obviously have your contact details. So you have your name, contact details, sort of where you live, your email address, and your telephone number. Your profile, your personal statement. Okay, so we look at the personal statement and we think, right, tailor your personal statement to the job that you're applying for. So have a think about what skills that you own and what attributes you have. How does that match the job that you're applying for? And then look to tailor your profile to that spec. Okay, and we'll talk about that further on detail in the next slides. Key skills, we've discussed that. It's one of the key points for applying for a job. Skills, skills, skills. It is what an employer is looking for. What we do with what we do as part of our program is we would highlight the key skills within that role with you. So we would look and we would go, right, that's a skill, that's what they're looking for, attribute here, skill here. And what that does is you then look and you go, right, actually, I've got that, I can do that, I can match that to my last role, I can do, and it makes it so much easier for you to then lay out your key skills. Key skills section, we probably look at to bullet point more than sort of, because this is your reverse chronological, we'd look at your key skills in a sort of bulleted form. So it's easier and clear and concise for an employer to look at. So we'd have no more than, I would say, 6 to 8 bullet points. And we'd have them in sort of like a, next to each other so that they can see exactly what it is that you've got. And again, that's key, it comes under your profile because you've already mentioned a little bit in your profile about what you can do. Your key skill just highlights that. And then we look to do your work history after that. So your career history. So this is what we then look at for your CAR statements. Now, CAR statements are challenge, action, result. So what was it that you've achieved or what you've done? What action did you provide and what result did that bring? Okay, so it doesn't need to be, you don't have to be thinking about these. I know in different statements when we use STAR techniques and things like that within interviews and within sort of competency-based interviews and things like that, where we're looking at more of an in-depth, but with a CAR statement, you are looking to hit the point, clear and concise within a sentence or two. And again, gives the employer a really good indication as to what you can achieve and what you've done in the past as well, because remember, they want to see that. Again, with the career history as well, don't forget, being a military spouse brings a lot of skills. I'm a spouse myself as well as doing this job, and I think I've picked up a lot of skills throughout my many years moving around from Scotland to England, and I think a lot of attributes as well is like your resilience, your timekeeping, the ability to be able to remain calm in situations. You might have, I don't know, volunteered or helped out with the local family community and things. These are all skills that you've attained throughout your time. So don't be afraid to ask your advisor or ask one of us to think, right, actually, I've done this. Does this seem a skill? Where would I look to put that? These are things that we can talk through when you've got an advisor. But again, career history, look at what you've done in the past. Have a look at how you can lay that out. Education and qualifications. Now again, education qualifications, discussed that in the previous part, is don't get too bogged down with, oh God, I've got to list every single qualification I've got. Like, I think I did I do some sort of swimming or something like that? I wouldn't add that on. So just have a think about what's relevant to the role. So think about, actually, is that going to be relevant? Is the employer going to look at that and go, that's a really good qualification to have? If not, leave it off. Only put on the ones that are relevant. Now, your GCSEs and your A levels are probably going to be relevant, and any other qualifications that you've done in the past that maybe deem skills for the roles that you're applying for. Again, look to lay it out in the sense that you've got GCSEs level 5, like A to C, English and maths. Again, when they're listed in a list of maths, science, English, French, it starts to kind of lengthen that CV, and that's kind of what we're looking to kind of aim away from, is to get that clear and concise CV that someone can look at in 2 pages and go, right, bang, 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 yeah, absolutely. And hobbies, don't forget to add in that hobbies box. Again, personal interests. Why would you fit for the role? Oh, she enjoys yoga, such and such liked yoga, and it's about seeing how that would fit well within the team. We've got 2 additional boxes that we say that it's not mandatory, it's additional. You can add them in if you like. So a LinkedIn profile. So a lot of people now are on LinkedIn, especially when they're looking for jobs, looking for career change, looking for networking opportunities, etc. Don't be afraid to pop in your LinkedIn details on your contact details. It's absolutely fine to have your profile on there, even if it's just your little name. And again, the additional information box. This was what we were talking about with the driver's license, with the DBS check, with all that sort of additional information. We can pop that in amongst the education, qualifications and hobbies. Now, you're probably thinking, where does volunteering come in? Because actually, volunteering is a massive part to employment searching, and actually it can have massive positives when looking for employment. Now, we would personally aim to pop your volunteering in your career history, whether that be to gap an employment gap. So you've done something, in amongst doing, maybe drafted, you've been overseas, things like that. You've done a lot of CPD, so personal development, while you've been overseas, or you've been on a different draft where you've not worked, or you've volunteered for the local hive or community centre, or you worked as part of the families group or something like that. These are all key skills that you will have picked up, whether you've been doing the treasury role or whether you've been doing the social media aspect, or whether these are all skills that you will have picked up in amongst that time. So don't be afraid to list these in your career history if you're gapping, if you've volunteered for, since 2019, 2020 at the local family centre, and look to keep to match these skills again. And again, that's what we're here for. We're here to help you match and tailor these and go, actually, what did you do between this time? Oh, I only did a course in this. Well, actually, that's relevant. Pop that in there. Personal development. You've used and managed your time efficiently while not working. You've been proactively searching, but you've been doing something else in the meantime. So it's always really good to add that in as well. Content and layout of a functional skills-based CV. So they're very similar in terms of name, contact details and profile. So again, you'd have exactly the same top. The only difference is you will have your selected skill headings. So this is where you have your sections that are classed communication, administration, management and leadership. And again, under these you will have detailed, clear CAR statements under each single one. Now you can have, a real good, paragraph under each one to really specify exactly what you've done and highlight these skills. And again, don't forget, they don't have to be all from that one specific job. It could be spanning over 2 or 3 jobs, but they're all come under the same skills heading. Again, we've got some great templates over at the RFEA Families Programme to help you just have a better understanding of what should be in there. Career history, again, your career history obviously has to be in there, but it doesn't have to be as detailed as in the reverse chronological. Okay, so we're not looking for you to have, in the reverse chronological under career history, we'd look to have you have the address, the date that you've worked there, the name of the company, and what your title of your role title was. And then underneath we have a little outline. We like to have it as our sort of strap line of exactly just an overview of what your job was. And then underneath, bullet point the CAR statements of what your skills were. Now look to use verbs like, managed, led, supported, and again, you will tailor this from the job specification. So don't forget, every time and every piece of your CV and application, you are looking back at that job spec, you're looking at that personal specification, you're matching and tailoring yourself to that job. Okay, and that's again stuff that we can help with. But again, just don't forget that we have to keep going back and making sure that actually, okay, so I've got that, yep, I can add that in, and tailor that and use specific words that they're looking for. Again, this is why it's key. Highlight the key skills, highlight the attributes, see how they best fit into your CV when describing yourself and demonstrating what you've done in the past. Education and qualifications, again, it's the same. List them on there. Don't list every single one, and only really keep it to the sort of the qualifications that are relevant. And again, with career history, anything post 10 years, if it's not relevant to the role, if it doesn't need to be in there, then don't worry about popping it in. And again, hobbies, like again, getting the personal interests and giving them that little bit of an indication as to who you are. And then we've got the LinkedIn and the additional information. So again, they fall into the same category. So I'm just going to have a little drink. Perfect. And you can see I've just highlighted again the selected skills headings. And again, it's about making sure that actually each skill that you're demonstrating and describing matches again what the job that you're applying for. So make sure that your skills headings are sort of relevant to the job that you're applying for. Skills v qualities. Now, again, and I don't mean to bring it back to me, but being a spouse who was out of work for a little while when I moved to where I am now, and I'd always worked full time, I never knew the difference. I would list everything that I had, put it all on my CV, and hope for the best really. But I didn't know the difference between a skill and a quality. I used to look at them like soft skills, hard skills. But actually, when you look into them a little bit more in depth, actually, you can see exactly what the difference is between a skill that our employer requests and what they would like, and then the qualities that they also want your attributes. What do you attain personality wise? So just for a little bit of a rundown. So a skill, we look at that as an action, okay? So they can be separated into hard skills and soft skills. So when we're talking about skills, we're talking about your leadership, your computer, your IT skills. We're looking at different ways that you can demonstrate that you can do that role. Quality is your personality traits, how you are, like how your way of being is, your friendly and accommodating approach, your customer service, these are all your attributes or your qualities that you have to list in there. And these are really important as well, because you will find that whereas the job's description gives a really good indication as to what the role requires, the personal specification is really just as important as well, because that's what they're looking for. Quality. Now, I always say and this is just my thing, that the qualities and the soft touches are the ones that you can't really teach. They're the ones that as a person you have, whereas the hard skills, like the leadership and management, these are things that you will pick up as you go. Your qualities are just as important, but the skills is where the employer looks at mainly within certain sections of your CV. So just to give you a little bit of a highlight of some of the skills. So this is just a group of skills that we've looked at. Now, presenting, producing, project managing. Now, these are all skills that we could highlight within our CV against the tailoring. Now, when we're discussing CAR statements or when we're discussing our work history, we always look to talk in the past tense. So you would say drafted, edited, supported, solved. I'm just taking them off of there, but like, you know, we would talk about it in the past tense, even if you're talking about a current role. We also, again, look to steer away from using personal pronouns, but again, I'll talk about that when we come to the personal statement. So again, it's all about highlighting. It has a more benefit factor on who's reading it, and it's more of an impact when they say, you know, when they read that you've done something. So it's past tense. This is what they're doing. Operated, presented. Your qualities, again, this is your, you know, hardworking, self-motivated. These are all qualities that they would look for you to have, but we don't have to bog down our personal statement and our key skills with all these qualities. We need to kind of manage them and have them, they need to balance, okay? So we have to have a few more skills than we do qualities, but again, they're just as important. So making sure, again, what they're asking for in that personal specification, we can match to that quality. Again, independent, articulate, clear thinker, you know, majority of people probably use hardworking and motivated within their personal statement. Again, you know, you can have a few qualities within there, but again, it's about highlighting the key skills as well. So again, we've got all of this on handouts that we give out to each of our registration clients, so people who are on the programme, and they get all of this away with them, and they can really look at it, and they get a plethora of verbs and things like that. So again, just looking at different ways that you can describe the skills and the qualities that you've got. Right, profile. So it's your personal statement. So personal statement is probably going to be the second thing if they don't have a cover letter, or the first thing that an employer will read. And this is the most important part, okay? So what you're doing this is capturing that employer's attention from the first second they read it, okay? And the way we look at it is in 4 parts. There is 5 parts, but we'll look at the main 4 parts first. So what are your qualities? So this is when we're talking about the skills v qualities. So you can start with your qualities: reliable, flexible, and what is your relevant qualifications. So again, what is it you're doing in your current role or previous roles that give you the you know, what qualification you've got. If you don't have any qualifications, again, look at tailoring it to what your job title was. So you could say, you know, reliable and flexible administrator with, and then we go on to the experience. So again, have you got 5 years experience? You know, have you got a year's experience in the care industry? Have you got, so have a look at what experience you've got. And again, we've got this developing your profile handout that we have, and it's got like a hook on it, and it's almost like a hook. You're hooking that employer in and getting them engaged to think, oh god, yeah, they've actually got some really good, I want to keep reading. So that's what you're doing, you're hooking them in. And again, what is your message? So what is your experiences? You know, what can you deliver within that role? What experiences have you got that matches what they're looking for? And again, that's the 4 points, but looking at who you are, so what qualifications and what job title, you know, what have you done, your experience, and then what is your message? What are you looking for in terms of, you know, what have you got that could bring to that role? Now, when we look at an example, have a think about, we try to tend to steer away from the usual phrases like, oh, hardworking individual. Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. But what we're doing is, remember, we're trying to hook them in. We're trying to get them engaged within that first 2-3 seconds of them reading it. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference in this example of what we've popped. So we've popped an enthusiastic and professional. So there is your attribute straight away. NVQ level 2 qualified administrator. So there you go. You've told the employer already you've got the qualification that they need you to have for that role. And then you've got the 5 years experience delivering efficient and administrative and business support. So again, you're labelling straight, clear out, this is what I can do, this is what I've done. Demonstrates an organised and methodical approach with a proven track record of monitoring office operations, enforcing office protocols and implementing new administration systems. So you're absolutely within 5 sentences getting in there exactly what you've achieved. Might not be absolutely everything, but what you're doing is you're giving them a really good hook in to say, actually, she's covered maybe 5 or 6 of the key points that we'd mentioned in the job spec, and here you are. Okay, so when we've looked at a job description, we've highlighted professional, we've highlighted efficient, organised, methodical and implementing. These are all words that we pulled out of their job description that we were able to match to our key skills. So we know that we can mention them in our personal statement, again, hooking them in, grabbing their attention, because ultimately this is what we want to do. The end goal is obviously to get that job, but what we need to do is we need to gain their attention to be able to gear that up for an interview. Then interviews are completely, what we do is we do interview support and we do interview experience and we do a lot of preparation for that to then go on and achieve the job. But this CV is the one part, but again, you need to make sure that you're hitting all the right points and looking at that and tailoring it. Statements is something that we talk about. So I hope this is going well so far and I hope everybody's learning something. I certainly learned a lot from doing this job, especially about CVs, because it is hard when you're trying to sit at home and write about what you've done and what key skills you have. And, you know, I struggle a lot with that. And it's almost, you always have to think about what you've achieved. And some people really do struggle with that. And that whether that comes from confidence or self-esteem, whether that comes from any, you know, you just can't sit there and physically think about it. Have a chat with someone like us and think about, actually, I don't think I've got any skills. Right, let's take it back and let's see what you've done before. Let's have a real delve into what you've done in your past experiences and let us help you highlight these skills. CAR statements being a perfect example. We help a lot with CAR statements. CAR statements is one of the big things for us. CAR obviously stands for challenge, action, result. I've mentioned it before, but the challenge is, what was the specific situation? Again, it can be 2 words. What was your action? What did you do? And what was the result? Again, what was the outcome? That's probably what the employer's main benefit is. They want to see what was the result, what was the outcome of what you've achieved. So where to begin? So again, like I just said, sometimes it's hard to sit back and think, what skills what did I do? Like, you know, I have no idea where to start even thinking. Was that a CAR statement? Did I, when I solved that problem? These are all places where to begin. So think about, did you implement a efficient way of working in sort of a role? Did you work well successfully in a team? These are all things that you can build up to a CAR statement. So again, write down a couple of examples and see if you can make that into a short sentence. Now, an example being, and so, for instance, if you were an administrations assistant and you answered telephone calls and dealt with queries efficiently, that's brilliant. But what we could do is we could change that into a CAR statement. And what we can say is, answered a high volume of telephone calls promptly and professionally, assisting with inquiries where possible, and redirecting calls when required to deliver excellent customer service. Now, you might think, right, we need to highlight where the CAR statement is within that. So the challenge was obviously the red part. So the challenge was that you were dealing with a high volume of calls. Where was the action? Well, the action was that I answered them promptly and professionally. You assisted with the inquiries and you redirected the calls. There's your action. There's what you took and popped that in. And then the result was that excellent customer service was gained. So that was delivered within there. And you can see how that short, that 3-sentence CAR statement can really highlight about 3 or 4 different skills that they're asking for within a role within that one CAR statement. So you don't have to have 25 bullet points of what your roles and responsibilities were, but as long as you're hitting the right key points of what they're asking for in that role and you're managing to pop them in your CAR statements, you can see how you can highlight a good few skills within one CAR statement. So they really are beneficial. And again, they help you when you come to interview process, when you're thinking about the competency-based questions and how you answer the the interview questions when you come to that. So again, they do help you throughout the process. I might be going slightly over. I'm aware that I'm going over, but I just want to make sure that I give you absolutely everything, because obviously CV's a big part of what we do, but we really enjoy it. And I think I just want to make sure that you have everything you need to go away and think, right, actually, that's got me thinking. Maybe I need to kind of look at my CV and revise it a little bit. Maybe you need to get in touch with one of us and say, actually, could you just have a look over it and see if there's anything that's missing? We're absolutely happy to do that. So tailoring your CV, again, I'm going to bring up all the whys. So why would you tailor your CV? Well, it's probably one of the most important things when applying for a job is to tailor your CV. So gone are the days where we used to be able to have a version of our CV, and again, very guilty of this, of sending it out to 20 different jobs and not looking at the job spec and going, yeah, I can do that, like that, put the CV out and that's it, done. Actually, when an employer looks, they're looking and going, hasn't read the job specification, doesn't really have an understanding of the role, not that interested, and pops it to the side. And it has happened to me on many occasions before this role, well before this role. So we look at tailoring your CV. And again, why do we do it? You want to stand out from all the rest. So whether there's been 20 or 30 applicants, you want to stand out in that top 5 or top 3 for an interview. Effectively highlights your most relevant skills. So you're already highlighting straight away what you've got and what matches the job. And again, you demonstrate your interest in the role and the company. So again, it's having that understanding and that interest within the role. Someone looks at it and goes, they've really taken time out to do that. Right, really interested, yes, pile. But how do we tailor our CV? So we look at that and we think, right, we need to tailor it, but how do we do it? Well, what we do is we allow ourselves enough time to apply. It's key for that. Looking at a job that is going to end midnight that night and trying to tailor it can put a lot of stress on yourself. So if you see a job and it doesn't end for 2 or 3 weeks, don't hold off to the last day. Look to start tailoring and look to make sure that you're prepared from then. Because what we're finding is with the current jobs market at the minute, a lot of jobs are closing their dates earlier than what they'd specified just because of the sheer volume of applicants, which they do say on their applications that they will do. So what you need to do is allow yourself enough time to apply. Make sure that you're tailoring it and getting that application in before the deadline date, okay? That's not to say don't put you off applying for something that closes tomorrow and you're well suitable for it, but having a well formatted layout and content CV that's tailored to each job that you're applying for, having one that's probably ready-made already, you're only going to have to change it ever so slightly for applying for these roles that you're going for. Read the job advert carefully, again, self-explanatory, make sure you have a good understanding of the role. And have different versions of your CV, like what I just said. If you want to have one that you've done a lot of administration in, have one. If you've got a lot of management and leadership skills, have another CV. There's no rule to say that you can't have 2 or 3 different CVs. And again, you give yourself the best possible chance of having, right, I've got a CV for that. All I need to do is tailor it to the job that I'm applying for. And again, ask an employment advisor like ourselves, where we're always here to help tailor your CV. We won't do it for you, but what we will do is we will give you the tools and the skills, and we will read it over as well for you, and we'll make sure that we're hitting all the key points. Cover letter. Now, I added this in because actually a lot of people don't forget about a cover letter, but actually the main priority is the CV or the application form, but actually a cover letter is highly important, especially if it's one of the points that an employer asks for and doesn't get. Now, I have heard it before that, if an employer does request a cover letter and application or a cover letter and CV, the cover letter's not there, they've not read the instruction. Unfortunately, sometimes it can be overlooked. So what we do is we make sure that you've got everything right there. So we use templates that we've got, and then all you do is you again tailor it and match it to each job that you're applying for. So why do we need a cover letter? Okay, so cover letter demonstrates an interest in the role you're applying for. It's that initial icebreaker, isn't it? Like when you're trying to identify a role, but you're also trying to introduce yourself into something. A cover letter is a really good icebreaker for that. You're not going into sheer depth of what your CV is going to provide. But what you're doing is you're giving them that little bit of a teaser. It's like what I've said, a chance to introduce your CV. Give them that little bit of a paragraph about 2 or 3 of your skills, about what you can do, key skills that they've asked for in that job, and give them that little bit of a taster and think, oh God, yeah, I want to keep reading into this. This person looks really, really good. And again, opportunity to highlight your skills and experience that match the role. That is key. Again, takes us back to that tailoring. Everything falls into place with tailoring. Tailor, tailor, tailor. And again, it just gives them a little bit of an understanding. And you can start it like a normal letter where you have your introduction paragraph of what job you're applying for. I am a, and this is what you go into about what you've done a little bit. You can have a paragraph about another bit about your key skills, and then you end it off with, you know, many thanks for reading my cover letter, and I welcome the opportunity to be able to, you know, go over my skills further with you, things like that. So we can look at ways to end it. And again, we've got a few tailored cover letters that we can send as templates that you can use if and when you need. Now, have a good understanding of what the job entails. Again, I've just said that. You need to make sure that you know exactly what job that it is you're applying for, and you can describe that within that cover letter. Look to tailor it and highlight some of your key skills that match the job specification, exactly what I just said. And take time to review and make sure you get your cover letter right, because edit is important. Make sure that your headings are correct. And again, because this is going to be the first thing the employer reads, you want it to be, again, almost like your personal statement. You're hooking them in, you're getting them intrigued, you're getting them, oh God, yeah, actually, I'm really interested in this person. Just make sure you review it and you edit it and make sure that everything's on point. Give yourself that time. And again, you can always ask one of us, when you're registered on the programme, just ask one of us and we'll happily help you with that. There's many elements to what we can support with, and it's not just the CV, it's not just the, the cover letters, the interviews, it's the career advice, there's lots of pieces to this. So yeah, just ask one of us. Further, you can contact us, so by registering at the RFEA Families Employment Programme. Again, it's quite self-explanatory on the website if you are interested in getting some further support with your employment search. We do have a Families Employment Facebook group for the RFEA families. Again, just you have a search for it. I think it's a closed group, but yeah, you're more than welcome to join. We do post in there our local newsletters that we do every month that the lovely Joanne puts together, and they're really informative and they're straight to the point, and we have jobs that get loaded in and things like that, just the odd job that we find that we might put in there, and also some motivational quotes and things like that. So it's a really lovely little group to be a part of. And again, more importantly, check Forces Family jobs regularly for more opportunities. Again, we champion Forces Family Jobs within our programme because we feel that it's just that step that we need in terms of we are doing the employment support. Forces Family Jobs have got career advice and they've got jobs on there and they've got training opportunities. It is a one-stop shop for everyone, really. So what we do is we tend to put that in and definitely send that out to people. So yeah, just regularly check it and keep an eye on it. But I think that's it from me, really. I think, again, like I say, just an overview of just make sure that you're tailoring your CV, have the content, the format and the layout ready. Be ready to pounce when that job comes up, because you don't want to do yourself a disservice for not being ready. Because first off is, if you're looking to look for a job, we need to get step-by-step little goals hit first. The CV is a big part of that. You can't apply for a job without a CV. So we need to make sure that that's covered and that you've got everything you need for that. But any questions, please don't hesitate to shout and contact one of us. I really hope I haven't ran over too much, guys. I do like to talk, but that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Lee. Well, that was bang on time, actually. 1 o'clock. Oh, there's a bit of echo going on.
Well done, Lee.
Thank you.
Right, so just leads me on to say, is anybody, I know we've been going quite mad on the chat room and that's fab to see. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask verbally rather than through the chat room? If you have, just pop your hand up using the little raise hand signal at the top of the screen so we know somebody is there, and then by all means ask away. That was really good though, Lee. Thank you for that.
No problem at all.
Loads of tips written.
Oh, I'm
Do you know,
glad.
it's one of those things that everybody writes or knows to do CVs, don't they? But how often do we actually spend time kind of fine tuning what we do and actually making them up to date? Because I know the style I've used for years, and you just think, well, actually, has that style gone out the window now? Should we be doing something more? And that's a question I've got, actually. Should you be doing things like photos and what have you? Because, you know, when you see those templates on Word, you can get these visual ones. Should we use things like that?
No photos, and I'll tell you why. It is lovely, because I'd love to put myself up on my CV. Like, I think it looks lovely, but I've got myself. But honestly, I think what we look for is, because we deal with ATS systems as well. So what we're looking at is the automatic tracking set system, and these are systems that employers use or on a regular basis to do their sifting process. Now, if you think about, if a job is estimated to get over 1,000 or like 100 applications, say, there is not one specific person that will have the time to be able to sift through every single one. So they use something called an ATS system. Now, an ATS system will not pick up things like photos, tables within your CV, certain types of bullet points. So again, this is why it's key to tailor it and make sure that it is kept simplistic, clear and concise. It only has the information that they need to have on it. It is very nice when you've got like pictures, or you've got like little tables with your key skills and things like that, and it does look really pretty. But when you hit an ATS system and it doesn't recognise it, then you unfortunately going to give yourself a disservice, because you might not get picked because of that.
Okay.
And one thing I forgot to say was, as well, is I wanted to hit a point, the personal pronouns thing. And again, I'm very guilty of putting that when I was, in my personal statement, I am I do this. We tend to steer away from the I's and the personal pronouns, and we say that because it gives more emphasis when someone's reading, like an employer is reading it from a perspective of just looking at it from what you can do. The I can, it can take away the emphasis sometimes when you're reading it. So we do tend to steer away from that as well. So we'll take out the I's and the we's and the, and just keep it clear and concise.
And what would you put instead?
You could have at the start, like what it said, a motivated administrator with such and such, and you look to then match it, like what the example had. So don't put I can do this or I can do that. A such and such with such and such, and then networked and and you're adding your verbs in, and your verbs are actually keeping your sentences together. Does that make sense? It's you're doing words rather than the personal pronouns, if that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I'm kind of watching the chat as well, and it looks like Joanne and Sarah have been picking up the questions as we've been going along, but I'll just hand over to them. Joanne and Sarah, if you've got anything else you wanted to add in.
Hi, excuse me.
Hi,
Hi,
Joanne.
don't think so. It's Sarah here. Don't think so.
Sarah.
I think I've said everything I needed to say, really, about having searchable CVs and profiles on the site.
That's lovely. Thanks, Sarah. Joanne, did you want to add anything in?
Yeah, same for me. I think I covered everything in the chat. I've put both the links now to the Families Programme Facebook group and to the registration link. So you need to go through the registration link to be assigned an advisor as opposed to through Facebook, but all are more than welcome to join the Facebook group. And I think I covered everything else. If not, if anyone can let me know, that'd be great.
Yeah, and the Families Programme, the RFEA Families Programme, just to make everybody aware, it is the eligibility criteria is quite broad. So we support spouses and partners of serving and ex-serving military personnel, and even ex-partners as well, and that's tri-service, so over all three of the services. And again, like I say, as long as they've got access to a service number and they can register for support, then they will be eligible.
I think there was one question just about undergraduate qualifications that I answered, but I'm not sure I answered it completely clearly in the chat. So just to cover that one, because we were talking about not including things that aren't relevant to the specific position, but I think the question sort of alluded to being discounted for jobs because of being overqualified.
Okay.
So that I think you'll agree, Lee, it's a kind of case per case basis. I know with my own degree, I'm really proud of it and I like to put it on my CV. But it is very much a application by application basis. If it's something that you think is holding you back because you're looking for something completely irrelevant, then that would be something we would work together to maybe sort of pull the skills out that you've attained through doing the qualification. I mean, it's one of those specific cases. I personally wouldn't like to take it out, but if you felt like it was holding you back, then there'll be other ways to put those skills that you've obtained into your CV without putting it down specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely, absolutely. And I think sometimes when people think, I've achieved that, and that's something that I want to pop in there, then absolutely never we would never discourage you to not put that in there. But if you feel that that is the reason why you are maybe being overlooked for jobs, whether that be that you're overqualified, flight risk, like you're only applying because it's to absolutely let's start looking at the key skills and looking at highlighting them first before we look at so by the time they get down to the education and qualification bit, she's got a degree, brilliant, but she's actually, the key skills that she's got are relevant to the roles that she's applying for or he's applying for. So again, just looking at it that way and just having a different spin on things, but absolutely not omitting it unless absolutely necessary, especially if it's something that they don't want to do. If you don't want to take it out, then that's fine. But I know that some employers do, but we work with really positive employers that want to support. Forces Family Jobs will probably say the same, that want to employ spouses and partners and want to really work with what skills you have, what opportunities that you bring to the roles, everything like that. So yeah, absolutely, Joanne, bang on.
Oh, ladies, thank you for doing that. That's really, really useful. And just to confirm, does it cost anything to use you, for anybody to come and approach you?
Absolutely not. We are a charity. So the RFEA Forces Employment Charity has been running since 1885. So we've been running for 130 years or something like that. So we're quite an old charity, but no, absolutely not. We're a completely free service. It's a bespoke one-to-one service. You get your dedicated advisor, Caroline, that will be there with you every step of the way. So you can use us as you see fit. So say, for instance, someone comes to us for career advice, a little bit of CV support, and then goes off and gains their long-term goal of employment. That is amazing. Some people come to us and want the full journey. Again, that's just as good. So anybody can use us. It's a one-to-one service. We tailor it to each individual, and that's how we work, really. So yeah, it's free for everyone.
Wonderful. Well, that's great news. And for anybody this is their first introduction to Forces Families Jobs as well, that is also a free website to use. Even if you register, there's no cost whatsoever. And that's the beauty of offering these webinars out to you, because all of these offers that we're bringing to you are completely fully funded for you as a military family member. So please contact us. You've got the email details there for Forces Families Jobs and for Lee and Joanne there at RFEA. And thank you so much for joining us.